Hi, I'm Michael Wan, your host for Michael Wan's Op-Ed Live. Trump-Putin Round 2. That is the topic of today's op-ed. So this is from CBS News. Moscow is ready to discuss a possible visit by President Vladimir Putin to Washington after a surprise invitation from President Donald Trump, with confusion still swirling around what the two men discussed behind closed doors in Helsinki earlier this week. Russia Ambassador Anatoly Antonov said it's important to deal with the results of their first summit before jumping too fast into a new one. He said he hadn't seen Mr. Trump's invitation himself, but that Russia was always open to such proposals. The Kremlin has a final say, but hasn't responded yet to the proposal Mr. Trump made Thursday. Antonov gave a few more details of what Mr. Trump and Putin talked about in Helsinki, but insisted that diplomatic discussions should remain discreet in order to be effective. The United States and Russia have been on opposing sides of the conflict in Ukraine, unleashed after a popular uprising against the pro-Russian president and Russia's annexation of Crimea in 2014. The Russian ambassador to Washington denounced anti-Russian anger in the United States and reiterated denials of Russian meddling in the 2016 presidential election. He also interrupted a questioner to say, "We didn't interfere." Antonov called Monday's summit in Helsinki a key event in international politics and laughed off suggestions that the two men made any secret deals. So President Trump, if you look at what he did to Russia, and if you compare that to 8 years of Obama administration, you can see that Donald Trump probably in American history was the toughest president on Russia, despite the claims from the New York Times, Washington Post, and CNN, and all those fake news, corrupt news out there. So I'll give you some examples. Okay, so for starters, it was President Obama who, according to Reuters, was caught on camera in South Korea. He was in Seoul, South Korea, saying to a Russian leader that he'll have more flexibility after the election. What does he mean by that, flexibility? It means that Obama would not target Russian nuclear weapons with the missile defense system. Can you believe that? If Trump did this, they would scream treason. The fact is, President Trump has been quite tough on Russia. He put one sanction of top of another. Just last April, the Trump administration imposed new sanctions on Russia, including strict sanctions on 7 of Russia's richest individuals and 17 top government officials for their interference in our elections. The sanctions directly penalized President Vladimir Putin's inner circle by prohibiting them from traveling to the United States ever again. Can you believe that? The Putin's inner circle people cannot come to the United States because Trump puts sanctions on them. Did Obama did this before? I don't think so. And he did this by opening a bank account in the West. And also, the sanctions were so significant, it's considered among the toughest sanctions ever placed on individuals in a foreign country, with the exception of perhaps Iran and North Korea. Can you believe this? How come the mainstream media do not cover this? This is real news, okay? And during his first month in office in January of 2017, President Trump, this is from The Hill, President Trump upheld strict sanctions to punish Russia for its unlawful 2014 annexation of Crimea. With those sanctions, the Trump administration punished more than 3 dozen individuals and organizations that were behind the invasion of Ukraine. Even Treasury Secretary Steve Mnuchin had a hand in the action, stating that there would be no easing of the sanctions until Russia meets its obligations under the 2015 Minsk Agreement. Minsk Agreement is a ceasefire agreement between Russia and Ukraine. Isn't this really a tough sanction if you think about it with common sense, not just go along with the narrative that the mainstream media is putting out there? And in August of 2017, Trump signed a bill slapping even more sanctions on Russia, this time specifically aimed at the country's energy and defense industries. Congress made the legislation Trump-proof, which means that you can't nix the deal with an executive order. And yet, Trump still signed the bill. Can you believe that? You did. I bet most of you probably did not know this because of the mainstream media. And in fact, it was Trump, not Obama, it was Trump who ordered the closure of Russian diplomatic properties in San Francisco, Washington, D.C., and New York City that appeared to be a threat to American security. And it was also President Trump who shuttered the Russian consulate in Seattle. I'm not even halfway through. Look at this. To be sure, Obama kicked 35 Russian diplomats, but Obama kicked 35 Russian diplomats out of the country after suspected election meddling by Russia, but that was done only after Donald Trump won the 2016 presidential election. Just think about it. If Hillary won back in 2016, Obama would have never kicked out 35 Russian diplomats, and this whole Russia nonsense would not have even happened. That's why this whole Russia scandal, whenever you hear about Russia, it's all fake. It's fake news, fake narrative. What about Russia meddling in the election? They have been meddling in the election all the time. And back in 2014, Intelligence Committee Chairman Devin Nunes, the congressman from California, he said we have to be careful about Russia meddling in American election, particularly in the election of 2016. But Obama didn't do anything about it. In fact, back in 2012, during a debate between him and Mitt Romney of the Republican presidential nominee, it was Obama who said, "You're crazy to even claim that Russia is such a danger." He said that it was Al-Qaeda and those terrorist groups. Obama said that, and not Russia. And Mitt Romney was the one who said, we have to be careful of Russia. And Obama said, we're not living in Cold War anymore. So where was the outcry from the mainstream media back then? So this whole thing is fake. New York Times is fake. Washington Post is fake. CNN is fake. They're all fake. ABC, NBC, CBS, all of them. They're all in this cabal together with the globalists. You guys should know that. So it is questionable whether he would have done so had Hillary Clinton succeeded in being the victor, The Hill asks. Furthermore, it was President Trump who led the world in expelling Russian diplomats after the Russian government was suspected of carrying out a nerve agent attack in the United Kingdom. You remember that? Against one of their former spies. President Trump moved swiftly to expel 60 Russian diplomats from U.S. soil, and other countries followed suit by expelling dozens as well. I doubt Obama would have done this. I doubt it. Okay? And in addition to stringent sanctions, Trump also called out Russia publicly. During a landmark speech last year in Poland, Trump lambasted Russia for using oil to hold NATO's Eastern European countries hostage. And do you remember when Trump had a meeting, the NATO meeting? Right after he immediately landed, he criticized Germany of importing oil from Russia. Isn't NATO supposed to protect themselves from Russia? Then why are we empowering economically Russia by letting Germany buy oil and gas? It's ridiculous. Trump pointed this out. Aren't we supposed to praise him for that? Just by that alone, I think NATO summit was a huge success, and Trump-Putin summit was also, in my opinion, a tremendous success, despite what the mainstream media is trying to say. So Trump administration even offered to help identify alternative energy sources for the region, it says, and compare all of the above actions to Obama's tiny policy on Russia and outright appeasement on issues such as the red line that Russia blew right past in Syria. Do you remember the red line? If they use chemical gas that America would attack, would fight back in Syria against Russia, huh? He didn't do anything. Obama just let, it wasn't even a red line. Trump shot ballistic missiles to Syria last year, if you remember it. I think he shot like 60 missiles. So who's tougher? Use your common sense. Do not rely on the mainstream media. Just because the mainstream media says Trump was so soft and his rhetoric is so soft to Russia doesn't mean that his policy is soft on Russia. Well, that's our show for today. Our show is not about left or right. It's about being right or wrong. To stay up to date with our latest videos, make sure to subscribe to this YouTube channel by clicking subscribe. Thanks for tuning in.